Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday. Where else are we going to be? I'm here with, as always, get to hang out every Tuesday night with my big brother, Rich. Rich, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great. Where else would you rather be?
Yeah, exactly.
Right here, right now.
Hey, and you know what's nice? This is just you and I hanging out on a Tuesday night. We just also get to invite other people to come and join in the fun. So even if no one was listening, I think we'd still.
I'm nicer to them than I am to you, though.
Well, of course, that's just how we are. That's just how we roll. So, but this is our brother time. This is our bro time. That's why it's the Scho Bro Show. So we're hanging out, doing our Steeler talk. And of course, we talk about what we're going to talk about for the show tonight a little bit beforehand. I'm like, all right, we got to stop. This is what the show's supposed to be, us talking about this. So here we are. It's March. This should be a good one.
It's madness.
Yes, it's March Madness is a good term. Even when it comes to the NFL, because
yes, it is actually.
I did a silly little article yesterday afternoon that those few people that read it, they enjoyed it. It wasn't for everybody. I took some dates and some other cliches from March and equated it to stuff with the Steelers. Like, I had to ask, I wasn't even sure if it was just our upbringing in our area. If it was a widely known phrase of, March coming in like a lion and out like a lamb. Do you remember that growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, does everyone talk about that? Or was it our little mid-Atlantic Appalachian farm country? This is kind of, this is the big transition month weather-wise. So I compared that to like the Steelers, like last year. March 1st came around, everyone's talking about the Steelers needing a tight end in the draft. Then free agency happens. No one's talking about the Steelers taking a tight end of the draft, and they didn't even draft one because everything could change in the month of March.
Correct.
I kind of look at that way. So I said it came in like a tight end and out like a running back because that's what everyone was talking about last year. I said beware the Ides of March because that's the date that the legal tampering kicks off. Then you've got St. Patrick's Day, woo, with when the league year kicks off. I don't know if you like the one that I did. I did Face Palm Sunday.
Really?
Because I'm like, you'd be just over 10 days into free agency, and you're going to look at some of these guys that sign other places, whether they were at the Steelers or just other free agents that fans look at, and you're like, they signed for just that, and the Steelers didn't do this. What are they doing? So that was my Face Palm Sunday. I had some other things in there, but it's March. There's a lot of good, crazy stuff that's going to be happening.
Wow, without a lot going on, you get to be extra dorky.
Yeah, I get to be super dorky with that. I mean, I talked about the first day of spring. It was good stuff. So it was just fun. But what we're going to be talking about is the big thing that everyone's just kind of waiting and seeing what's happening. And waiting is that, the whole Ben Roethlisberger extension, reworking, all that stuff. Everyone has a pretty good notion that that's what's holding up a lot of things. I don't know that that's holding up a ton as much as what's holding that up is holding up everything else. And the whole 17th game.
Their 17th game. Where's the salary cap going to be? Did they get that TV deal done and up the cap some more?
Yeah.
I know.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm like,
there's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. That's exactly what I was going to say. Same wavelength, brothers. So because I'm like, these 2 weeks leading up to that time, you're going to start to see stuff really pick up. You know what? We might not. It might be a flurry at the very end. And that's what happened last year, because do you remember being in the same holding pattern last year that we talked about? We were talking about with what money. That was our big thing. And it wasn't because, this year you could say with what money, because the Steelers are in trouble right now with the salary cap. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But it's the whole notion last year of They didn't know if they could do the stuff with contracts because of the looming CBA.
CBA, yep.
So they get the new CBA last year on the 15th of March, and the league year kicked off on the 18th. And you know what? They still got the work done. They still got everything done in that very small window. You could be looking at that same small window this year. We just don't know. It's going to be crazy. But what we're going to talk about that, if they wait until the last second, like what they had to last year, you know what? If that's what they need to do, if they deem that that's the best way to go, it's okay to say, you know what? I'm going to trust the Steelers to do what's best here. And that's our topic tonight. It's okay to put your trust in the Steelers. Because think about this. Why do we love this franchise?
Because they're awesome.
Because they're the best franchise in professional sports. They're the best franchise in professional sports. And if you're not going to trust the best franchise in professional sports more often than you don't. Now, I'm not saying you have to trust them with everything, because we're going to get into some situations about that. We're going to play a little bit. How much do you trust the Steelers too? We're going to play that game later. But overall, if you don't trust the Steelers to actually make wise, smart decisions, then you're only following this team based on loyalty and not out of anything else. Now, there's nothing wrong with loyalty. You know, there's some very loyal Bungles fans that you have to feel bad for them because they're so loyal, but the team is the team. I mean,
always lets them down.
It's the
Bengals lady.
Yeah, it's the Bungles. So, but we're not talking about the Bengals. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And everyone talks about, even when you look at some of the negative stuff, they've only won 3 playoff games in the last 10 years. The Steelers are better than this. Well, if the Steelers are better than this, then we should trust the Steelers that they're going to be doing everything they can to get better than that. So not in everything along the way, but overall. So if the Art Rooney II said, well, I guess real deadline we have to get stuff done with Ben Roethlisberger is the 17th of March. If they wait till March 17th and then try to get their stuff done, I don't think that's the wisest thing to do.
No.
But do you trust them to still do it, to still have a plan of what they're going?
Look, Art II didn't say that because he wants to wait till the 17th of March. That was his way of saying, look, people, don't panic. Our backs aren't against the wall to do this right away. Mm-hmm. We'll get it taken care of. Right?
Sorry, I'm laughing because I still want to do something that I do with my wife sometimes. It's a quote from a movie. What is this? James Franco in Date Night. The Steve Carell movie. Taste. He's like, I have got this. That's Art Rooney. He just said, chill. I got this.
That was his way of saying RELAX.
Yes. Well,
yeah, that was his Aaron Rodgers moment saying, we're really not pushed up against it until the 17th of March. Is it going to get done before yes, it's going to get done before the 17th of March.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen before Friday this week.
Yes, I still wouldn't be sure. I mean, it could be.
I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't until Monday or Tuesday of next week.
I would not be surprised if it was Monday morning of the following week when the legal tampering period starts at 4 p.m. That would not shock me either.
No, it really wouldn't. But
poor Michael Beck. He's been doing the Ben Roethlisberger contract watch. If any of you all follow him on Twitter, you would see that he's had that going on for so long. He tried to stop it, and people gave him a hard time about it. That he just has to keep posting. It's GIFs, not GIFs, right? It's however you say it.
I don't know. I just say those little things.
Those little funny picture things with captions.
That's right.
He keeps posting them about the Ben Roethlisberger contract watch. And it's funny. And I'm like, we could drive ourselves crazy. And do I think we should get it done sooner than later? Sure. But you know what? It's because we don't know if that's like the first domino to fall, we don't know what the other dominoes are. We don't know this plan of what the Steelers are going to do to get under the salary cap. Do you think they have an idea right now?
Yes. It's like, we don't know. Mm-hmm. They have an idea of what they want to do.
Yeah.
You think they do just one thing and wait till that's done and then try to figure out the next thing? No. Not only do they have a plan, they have more than one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were 6 or 7 plans.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because you're like, are they going to cut players? Are they going to extend players? Are they going to, what are they going to do? And, Ben's holding up all this stuff. Is he? Or is it all going to, is it going to be one of those days where I'm writing 9 articles in a day because the news is coming so fast and furious that we can barely keep up because all of a sudden everything's going to happen and the shape of this 2021 Steelers team is really going to, we're going to see it. You know what I got
think? A quick question. I got a quick question for you. Question for you. You said about, everybody's saying, is Ben holding this up or what could happen, blah, blah, blah. Do you think there's a chance Ben even knows right now what they're thinking of doing, what some of their plans are?
Absolutely.
I would imagine they've maybe even talked to, when Art Rooney sat down with Ben, they potentially talked and he said, hey, here's what we're going to try to look to do. Here are some of the ways we'd kind of like to go. Some of the players we'd like to get re-signed, extend, make cap space, do this. Because I think all of that was going to play into Ben's decision.
Yeah, I think they kind of laid all that stuff out together. And there's things happening. Like Zach Banner already said he's going dark on social media until he signs his deal. I saw that.
Yep.
So I'm like, so things are coming. But here's the other thing. Maybe Ben's deal's even worked out, but they're still waiting to see, are they going to say about the 17th game in order to make this stuff official to know if you're going to have this clause or that clause or things like that.
Exactly.
Yep. So, hey, but before we lose it, because there's something else I'm going to say.
I was back there.
Just me. $5 into the tip jar. Thank you very much. Says we're listening. Just welcome each other to the chat. Don't feel left out. Appreciate your show. I wasn't watching the live chat. Were you watching the live chat?
I was here and there. I was here and there. I love when they get going, when they focus in more on stuff we're actually talking about, then I pay a little more attention to it than when they kind of go off and sometimes different discussions start, which I love to see going on as well. People just, in here talking Steeler football. That's why we're here. Talk Steeler football.
Yeah.
So,
yep. So we got another one here, $2 by Steel Dog 88. A little bit off topic, but we'll answer it right now. Hopefully we're going to be getting to questions later in the show. Says thoughts on trading up for the cornerback Samuel Jr. in the draft. That's Asante Samuel, right? I don't know. I know there's a Sertan.
Yeah, or whatever.
I know there's a J.C. Horn, Joe Horn's son that's a corner. Honestly, you want to know the truth? I'm not trading up for a corner.
I'm probably not either.
But notice, when am I saying this? March the 3rd.
Correct. That could change in the coming weeks. See, I'm still like you. You know what? I was telling you I hadn't been reading any of your stuff, but I went and looked at the one just because it was some of what we talked about last week.
The cornerback one, huh?
Yep. Everything going on with the corners. And I would still love to see a couple of restructures and be able to get Hilton and Sutton back at no more cap hit than what the corners currently hold.
Yes. And if you're wondering what Rich is talking about, well, first of all, last week we covered this on the show where we dove in to the corners. What are they going to do? What's their options like at slot corner, things like that. And we talked about, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could get their top 4 corners? That's Hayden, Nelson, Hilton, Sutton, all under contract, but do it in a way where the current number now for just Hayden, I almost said the wrong name, for Hayden and Nelson, rework those to where it's the same salary cap hit to keep the other 2 guys. I did the article. It's on behindthesteelcurtain.com. I worked out a way to do it. And I even think that I gave nice deals to both Hilton and Sutton in that article. Some people said Hilton could take more. I gave Hilton Steven Nelson's deal from 2 years ago.
Yes.
That's a really good deal.
That's honestly, a really good deal.
I don't know that I'm comfortable paying Mike Hilton that, saying that I hate to use the term one-trick pony because he's not, but he's not your typical slot corner. There's certain things he does great. And there's certain things you could want to do that he doesn't.
He plays a certain type of slot corner.
Yes, exactly. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I was still really generous with those, and I still worked it out that they made it under what right now, as we stand, that Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson, how they would count towards this year's salary cap.
Right.
Now, some people were talking about, you got to release Nelson or Hayden or whatever to save money. I don't think it's what happened. I think the Steelers like him, and like Jeffrey Benedict showed with the film, they're there. But you've got some choice with that. But that was to answer the question. Unless you cut loose somebody, there's no reason to trade up to go get a corner. I don't know that I'm trading up for anything in this draft as the Steelers, unless you are certain your next franchise quarterback's there to go get.
I'm right there with now.
Yeah.
3 weeks from now, ask us that question again and see if the answer is the same.
Everything could be different. Yep. So, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to trust the Steelers to make that decision.
Correct.
So
that I trust that they have a plan. They have an idea.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to trust that their plan, their idea is the right plan for the team. And sometimes that stuff is a little difficult to see because you see them make a move and then you're like, what in the world did they do this for when we need something else, or we should have done. Remember, that's just a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
In the end, no matter what's going on, we're going to have to wait until the entire puzzle is put together.
Yeah.
Till we see what they do with their own free agents and other free agents and the draft and it's going to be training camp before you can really have a better judgment on what this offseason was like.
Yeah. Well, see, I got a couple of things I got to say. First of all, I think I'm going to go there. Steeler fans
just stop doing that.
Are got spoiled by Randy Land. I just said that. How do you get spoiled by Randy Land? And that is, Steeler fans got so used to knowing exactly what the Steelers are doing. It's kind of driving them nuts right now that you don't know what the Steelers are doing with their personnel.
Okay.
Because you got so used to looking at their offense and knowing what's coming, then you're like, oh, well, this must be the Steelers. They're completely transparent. We know everything that they're doing and exactly what they're thinking. Well, that's what we got from Randy Land, but that's not what we're getting right now from the front office, and I am okay with that. The other thing I was going to say was, you said just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I like that. I'm going to use a different analogy because I use this with my wife all the time. If we're driving somewhere on a trip, she'll be doing something else, distracted with the kids, and all of a sudden she'll look up while we're driving and be like, oh my goodness, they're braking or something like that. And I'm like, it drives me nuts. She gives me a heart attack while I'm driving. But I remind her, you're taking a snapshot out of the video that I'm watching when it comes to me with my driving. I've seen how people were braking and how they're reacting, and I've been seeing it for 15 seconds. And you're taking a snapshot and you're flipping out. So sometimes we got to remember. So I like the piece of the puzzle.
Hold on. I want to stop you here for just a second. Okay. Renee, honey, if you're watching the show right now, I want you to pay extra special attention to the analogy Dave just gave. Thank you.
That just so people know, that's not my wife, that's yours. You're talking to. But that's the one thing. And when I say that to her, she's like, that makes sense. But that's kind of what we do sometimes with the Steelers. It's a moving, fluid thing, and we're getting a snapshot picture of it. So
and we're thinking that the Steelers are at point A when that's the move they made. But in terms of what they have rolling behind the scenes, they're already on point, J.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah. Yep.
So but we don't know what's going on back there. We only get the little bits and pieces that they're putting out there to us.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it difficult as a fan. That's why, armchair quarterbacks and armchair coaches and armchair GMs, get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. And but this is honestly, who's ruined this to me? It was the direction that sports channels like ESPN and others took when they stopped going away from Sports Center and things like that and actually reporting on the actual sports that were happening, and everything is just hot take shows. So now everybody has to have their hot take. Everyone. And with social media and that, every fan has their own hot take. So we all that's when you got the Ben's washed up hot takes, or Ben's the greatest thing since sliced bread, even if when he's 50 years old, hot takes. I just gave you two ends of the spectrum just to say what they are. And I'm not saying that one's right and one's wrong or whatever, but the thing is, that's just what we do now. Everyone gives the hot takes. Yes. And what's funny is you and I are sitting here with microphones in front of us. Guess what we're supposed to be doing? We're kind of giving you our hot takes. And there's nothing wrong with giving your opinion. But at the same time, my opinion of what I think the Steelers should do and what I think would be best is nothing compared to their own, to what they think. Because I said it at the end of what show is that I do on Thursday night? Steelers Preview. That's what it's called. At the end of the Steelers Preview, when I did my closing thoughts, I talked about we're trying to make decisions based on 60% of, at most of what's going on, because we don't have all the information. So right. I trust the team that has 100% of the information, that they're going to make a good decision. Even if I think that I'm smarter than them, which I'm not saying that I do, but even if I did, the fact that they have 100% of the information and I don't.
Now, I want you to know, I've known you your entire life. Okay?
So you know how smart I am. Thank you.
You didn't say it, but you were thinking.
But I was thinking it. No, well, depends who you're talking about. If you're talking about, never mind. I was going to say, with calling offensive plays, it's one thing, or going forward on 4th and 1 to start the fourth quarter. That's easy. But
we don't live in our fears.
Yeah, we don't live in our fears.
Except in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
you know what?
Okay.
I have a thought on that I might get to at some point. But the whole notion of this show and the whole idea of trusting the Steelers came about because I saw someone kind of say this to Jeff Hartman on social media, threw my name in there too. They're like, you guys just can't get over your love for Ben, blah, blah, blah. We said it on this show. So we're going to say it again.
Say it again.
When it came down to, is Ben Roethlisberger going to be the quarterback in 2021? We both went on record of saying, you know what? I'm okay if he is. I'm okay if he's not, because I trust the Steelers to make this decision better than what I could.
Yep.
That's what we said.
Exactly what, yes, it is.
Yeah.
We both, if I remember correctly, you let me say it. You agreed with me,
and I completely agree with it. That was you.
Which actually surprised me that you agreed with something I said.
I agree with you all the time. So
that's because I'm the smart one.
Exactly. Yeah. So here we are. We're having a good time tonight. So we trust the Steelers when it comes to things like that, when it's the really tough decisions that we don't have all the answers to. If you look at last year, and this is what's going on, everyone wants to talk about like the collapse at the end of the season and who was at fault. If you look at what the Steelers have done, you get a much better idea. Do you think everyone's like, oh, well, Ben was just running the offense and Randy really had nothing to do with it? Well, he still had to do the game plan and everything set up. And we already know that the scripted plays were terrible because the Steelers could not score points on their first possessions. I mean, I know they had a field goal against Cleveland and a touchdown against Tennessee. But other than that, they didn't. And those were problems.
No, for several years. Well, basically since Randy Lamb became the coordinator, we've stunk at opening drives.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're looking at these things and you're like, well, what happened at the end of the season? Well, they kind of ran out of stuff to do. And that's what happens when you don't have a running game and, certain things that you're not doing. And you're like, well, who's at fault? We can look at it and have an idea of what we think, but you know what? We're not in the team meetings. We don't know the game plan going into these games. We don't know if it was Randy's call that Ben changed, or if Randy's like, just giving him free reins. It seemed like whenever they said, oh, things were working, when Ben was drawing things up in the dirt, Randy got upset at that, didn't try to shut that down, say that's not what happened. But bottom line is the Steelers, it's not like they're just putting the same thing out there. They're not. They made a change at the offensive coordinator. They made a change at the offensive line coach. We'll see once free agency and the draft hits how they're going to possibly make changes in personnel. So it's not that there weren't what's bad is if it seemed like they keep going like there's not a problem. They've identified that there was a problem. But I think some people aren't happy because they didn't say that Ben Roethlisberger was the problem. By saying they want Ben for another year, they're not saying that Ben was the major problem. Now, doesn't mean they didn't factor in it all. I'm going to ask you a quick question about this before we get in more of our trust in the Steelers. Did the Steelers is the biggest reason they're moving forward with Ben as the quarterback, assuming this deal gets done? Is it because the Steelers knew that they had so much to fix, they couldn't do it all in 1 year, so they might as well not have to fix quarterback now?
There is that possibility, yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Because if you lose Ben, you're going to fix the running game and the passing game. Right.
And do you really oh, by the way, you always want to know. There you go.
We were up 3-1 going into the third when we started. So
thank you, Evgeny Crosby, for the update on the Penguins game.
Which was the first time that they've had fans in Pittsburgh to watch the Penguins since almost a year ago, because the last time it happened, it was Sunday, March 7th or 8th, whatever the Sunday was. And I was there with my son for his first game. So congrats, Pens. Glad to hear that they were cheering you on in the stands. All right, go ahead.
Everybody, I've seen people in the chat, different shows we've done or different shows, through the BTSC, family of podcasts. And I've seen people talk about, if Ben goes, do you use, Rudolph as a stopgap for 1 year and go here? Well, believe it or not, what if Ben Roethlisberger is our stopgap?
Yeah. It might be that 2021 Ben Roethlisberger is the stopgap from Ben Roethlisberger to.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, I'm trusting the Steelers that they know best in terms of what it was they wanted to do there.
Yeah. It might have, and I mean, if you're going to already be having $22.25 million counting on the cap, no matter what, the question is, can you get that the additional number down to between, 5 and 8, depending on how they work it out, and actually have the player that's counting that much? There's a lot going on. Bottom line is, I am trusting the Steelers that they are making the best decision there. And if the numbers don't work out, I still trust them to walk away from it. I do. I trust them that if they can't work it out right with Ben, that they're not going to force it. I do. So trust goes a long way. It really does. And it's not that trusting in the Steelers means that you have to trust in every single thing that the Steelers do. And we're going to get into that in the second half. We're going to look at some scenarios. I'm going to throw them out to you, and I'm going to say, how much trust do you have in the Steelers with this? But bottom line is, they're the best organization and the best franchise in professional sports for a reason. And that is because we can trust them, even if we don't have all the information. Because if you really want to listen to those hot take national guys, if you're an informed fan, you know more about the Steelers than they do.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even necessarily trust them. Now, when you're talking insider guys that are getting that are breaking reports. That's different. I'm just talking about their hot takes. Well, the Steelers are done. Oh, well, blah, blah, you know, you probably know more about the Steelers individually than they do if you're an informed fan, because if you're an informed fan, you probably watched almost every snap for the season, if not all of them, like I have. And therefore, these other people don't. So we're going to take our break. And when we come back, we're going to play How Much Do You Trust the Steelers With? And then we're going to hopefully have some time to answer a couple questions, and then, of course, turn around and do our big question of the week. So if you're listening in audio form, go ahead and click over to part 2. If you're here with us on YouTube or Facebook, give us a few seconds and we'll be right back. And we're back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with the second half of the Scho Bro Show, part 2. I am Dave Schofield, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, and with me, my big brother, Rich. How's it going, big bro?
It is going, gone. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Going on. Well, here's the question. Are we going? It's March. I mean, I was talking local baseball stuff earlier this evening, so I just kind of had that on the brain. But I can't believe that I'm kind of using this show as a basis. I mean, it kind of last week too, but this one more because it's in March. How different is everything going to be with the Steelers next week when we talk, the next week when we talk, and then the next week when we talk? And then we'll get 3 weeks from now, we're going to have a much better idea of what's going on with the NFL draft.
Right now, my crystal ball that I use to see what's going on with the Steelers is quite foggy.
Quite foggy.
It will become much clearer in the coming weeks.
We got to trust them, and that GM in Colbert, we trust that he's going to clear up that crystal ball.
I'm just back. Right now, I'm just back to Johnny Carson, where he, put the envelope up to his head, and guess what was in there? And then sorry. Yeah, you probably don't even remember Johnny Carson.
Oh, so. I most certainly do. Okay. Only because even though I was very young, if you liked it, I did too.
Okay.
It's just how it worked. So, hey, Felicia. Sorry, I just saw her in the live chat jumping in.
Hey, Felicia.
We got $4.99 from Evgeny Crosby after we got that Penguins update. It says the mainstream fake sports media hates Roethlisberger with a passion for whatever reason. I'd say not all of them, but there's
a lot
that I don't know what the deal is. Just, you know what? It's hard for me to say that because they are something that I can never not be. And that is biased towards my team, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
I'll always be that way. Right?
Yeah, but I always felt like there is some truth in that. I think early in his career, Ben kind of rubbed some folks the wrong way. We had the whole motorcycle incident, and then of course the
legal troubles and the suspensions
and correct. And you had that stuff going on, and a lot of people kind of fell out in love with Ben during that time. But also Ben's not a suck up to the media kind of guy.
No, he's not.
He never really has been. And so I think that just continued to rub some of those folks the wrong way.
Yep. And then, then Ben honestly turned his life around, met a nice girl, settled down, had a family, doesn't really address what happened in his past. It's his past is his past. And some people don't like him for that.
Yeah.
Some people don't like him for the fact that he grew up and found, redemption, if you know what I mean, and had a different outlook on life moving forward. So, but we're going to play a game. We'll play a game right now. And that game is, how much do you trust the Steelers? We talked about it's fine to trust the Steelers. It is. Overall, we do. We know we trust them with the decisions that they have. Like, I'm going to give you another example. Let's talk draft. If the Steelers are drafting a wide receiver, how much trust do you have in the Steelers that they're going to pick the best one for them, even if we think someone else is better at that moment?
I trust that they have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And are sticking with their plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we have sometimes seen, the Steelers have jumped and taken some guys early in drafts that haven't worked out very well for them. It was a guy who was to be a part of their plan moving forward, but the person that they draft just doesn't work out.
Yeah. Let's go. Okay.
I'm looking at you, Jarvis Jones, and
yeah. Then you're not answering my question. I am saying specifically, if the Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of like they did last year with their top draft pick, if they choose a wide receiver, even if it's someone that we might not have even been thinking they'd be drafted at that point, like with me when it was Deontay Johnson before.
Oh, that?
Do you trust the Steelers that they are making the wise move in drafting that player at that position?
I do.
Absolutely.
Because they're either drafting. If we're like, oh, wait, we needed we could have used, I don't know. Well, I'll just pick, we could have got an inside linebacker here. Well, instead of a wide receiver. Well, what if the highest rated inside linebacker we had there, we thought maybe there was a chance you could get him in the next round, and this receiver has fallen, I mean, there was no plan the year they drafted Ben Roethlisberger. That wasn't the initial plan. And some people thought, oh my gosh, we had Tommy Maddox. Why in the world don't we go get blah, 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 blah? Well, you couldn't pass it when Roethlisberger fell that far. There's no way you could do it. The Steelers couldn't believe he fell that far. So they drafted him.
And you go get him. All right. Paul says Lima Swede. You know what? Guess what? You honestly think that every franchise is going to nail every player from a certain position ever? I mean, you want to bring up the biggest bust of the Steelers wide receivers when you look at all these other ones that have overachieved. That's fine. So it still means you're not perfect, but seriously, would you not trust the Steelers in drafting a wide receiver? I would. When they chose to take Chase Claypool, I know a lot of people were upset that they didn't take Dobbins there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust the Steelers that if this wide receiver is that good, then he's the right pick for them. Guess what? Only 1 year in, looking pretty good. That's just one of those things that I trust. Now I'm going to ask you this one. The Steelers have to go out and replenish the cornerback position through the NFL draft. How much do you trust them to knock that pick out of the park?
Not as much.
Okay? Not nearly as much.
Not near as much. Again, I can go the Dave route and says, well, that depends.
Yeah.
Do we reach for somebody somewhere because we need a corner, or do we get a value corner a little late? Yeah.
I don't have a lot of trust with the Steelers when it comes to drafting cornerbacks. Now, I know some people are like, well, that's not
especially when there's pressure.
Yeah,
to get
especially when there's pressure.
When there's pressure to get a cornerback, we have not done well since Rod. Well, you can argue Ike Taylor, but Rod Woodson was the last one they hit out of the ballpark.
Now, I want to remind you,
Ike Taylor was extremely solid. And when you think through the years in there that we had kind of those two, and we've had some other higher picks that have kind of whiffed on. Yeah.
I'm going to combine those two positions. Remember in 2017, there were some people that were very upset that why in the world are the Steelers drafting a wide receiver in the second round? Why would they take this Juju guy? Okay. Yep. They needed a corner. They should have been drafting a corner right there, right then, right now. That's what they had to have. What are they doing taking this guy? And bottom line is they said we couldn't pass up on him and that he was there. He's that good. Trust us. We know wide receivers. And my other thing that I said about that was, well, they might have a cornerback that they think they can get later. You know what? They got a pretty good cornerback with their next choice in Cam Sutton.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been smart to take Sutton in the second round. And it was very wise to take Juju when they did. So believe it or not, I think Cam Sutton is one of their best cornerback draftees in a long time.
Yeah.
So just the fact that they would like to retain him, and even though he hasn't been called on to have to be a starter, but he's done well with what they've asked him to do. Let's see, what's another one we wanted to do? Okay, so how well do you trust the Steelers at cutting loose a locker room problem?
Steelers cutting loose a locker room problem?
Yeah.
Totally trust it.
Yeah. So that if
they've always done that.
That when they've got rid of someone, like, why would they get rid of, Plexico Burris? There was the issues with Santonio Holmes. Then, of course, we got 3rd and 5th, but he forced his way out on that one, and they try to make it work and things like that, that eventually that they just realize that it's not worth keeping. So,
and that
I know what you mean.
That has not differed through any of the 3 coaches since 1969 that the Steelers have had. They have always handled those things pretty well.
I'm sorry. I finally just looked at my live chat was way behind. And I scrolled down and I saw one, and I'm like, that's just too funny. When there was just one that I saw at the top, where Evgeny Crosby said, "I didn't like the Juju pick or the TJ Watt picks. So what do I know?" Yeah. Hey, you got to own it when Jeff still says that I hate Deontay Johnson simply because I didn't think they would draft the wide receiver from Toledo, because I didn't remember his name, that high. And good thing they did, or they wouldn't have got him. But some people still say the verdict's still out there. As long as he holds on to the ball, he's great. So that's how you go. So I don't know. Do you trust the Steelers to spend the money they need to spend on their players in order to get them?
Okay, give me a little more.
Like if there's a player out there that, whether it be a free agent from outside or their own, how well do you trust the Steelers to, how do you say it, open up their checkbook to make sure it happens?
I actually trust them a lot, which might seem strange for some people to say. The Steelers are very picky when it comes to their free agent signings and paying guys a little more money. But their track record on those have been pretty good. So I kind of trust them.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. Knee-jerk wise, I would say no, that I don't, because they lost out on this player. Why would you sign that player? And I could give some examples that didn't work out too well. But a lot of these, when you look back, I'm like, really? They went out and they signed a corner from the Chiefs who aren't known for having a great secondary, and and paid him this money to come as a free agent. I think Steven Nelson's been fantastic for the Steelers in the 2 years that he's been here. That's just one that I didn't know. Or here's one I'll tell you where I think I was
Joe wrong. Hayden. When we signed Joe Hayden, when he was released by the Browns and he came, I couldn't believe it.
Well, I couldn't believe they actually landed him. I didn't think they'd be, because the Steelers don't do that. I couldn't believe they actually put off the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, but Correct. They did what they needed to do. So that actually really restored some faith in me. Here's what I didn't like. When the Steelers chose to sign Anthony Chickillo for the price that they did, when he could have gone to New England, they would have given him a decent comp pick, and let LJ Fort walk for half the price.
Yeah.
That's one that didn't sit well.
That was me. Correct. Look, and every franchise is going to have those kind of things.
You're going to have those because you're not perfect.
But also, again, you don't know as much behind the scenes.
Yeah. Exactly. For every Steven Nelson, you have a Ladarius Green.
Yeah.
For every Joe Hayden, you have a Dante Moncrief.
Stonehenge.
I know. What are we doing? Why would you say? So that's the thing, that there's certain situations where you trust the Steelers, and you're like, some of it's like, I don't know that I do as much, but it's funny. Almost every one of these questions, your first impression might be, nah, not so much. Like even me with corner, nah, not so much. But then you're like, well, if they're not pressured into having to draft a corner, I'm like, you got a good point there, that my trust kind of rolls right back around to him. And that's why we're saying it's okay if ultimately you end up saying, you know what, I think the Steelers should do this, but I trust the Steelers. Like,
yeah,
I know there's certain people that are out there on social media. Now, a lot could change after free agency, but looking at it right now, that if the NFL draft was tomorrow, and if the Steelers come up to pick 24, and if Najee Harris is on the board and they don't take him, they are going to be irate. You know?
Yeah, but to me, some of that depends on
I'm going to trust what they do.
Who's there that they do take?
Yeah.
Now, if a Najee Harris type player is there and they draft, I don't know, pick somebody.
Give me a position.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about, kind of.
Here we go. Someone who might be projected more as their second round pick. Creed Humphrey, center from Oklahoma.
There you go. Correct.
Yeah.
If Harris would be there, and they take a guy, they reach for that guy that probably they could have tried to target in the second round, but they take him in the first round instead, I will understand more why people are upset. But I won't give a final grade on it until everything plays out.
Yeah. See, because this is how it's going to be. It was this way a little bit last year. Last year you had the combine, but you didn't have most of the pro days because they were, any of them that were after the first week of March, they were done. Okay. Unless it was a really early one. This year you're not having the combine. You're only having these special pro days, and we aren't getting hardly any information from them. We aren't. So the experts are telling us this player is great, or eye tests are telling us this player is great. But you know what? The Steelers, they have a really good scouting department. You got to give them that. They do. And they do their due diligence. Now, some people might be upset with how much in love they are with players out of the University of Maryland or the MAC or, Ohio State, things like that.
I don't care what you say. The MAC is better than what most people give them credit for.
They are.
You might not have as great of teams, but there are a lot of great players come out of that conference.
Exactly. You can still have great individuals on teams that just aren't complete, like in Alabama. You know what I mean? It's just how it works. So this year it's going to be really tough to gauge because you could, no joke, you could have guys ranked in the top 10 that don't go in the first round because all the experts think that's where they're going to go. But when teams break it down, they're not going to see it. Your big board, I said it last year, I thought it'd be the case. I think it's going to be this year even more. Different teams' big boards are going to be so different. Teams are going to be thinking that they're getting a steal in round 2, where another team might not have that player to round 5.
Right.
And vice versa. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That it's just how it's going to be this year. So that's what I think is going to be crazy about that. If there's a guy that the Steelers feel like they need to get, and that's the thing when it comes to they're like, oh, well, what tackle would you like? Or, if the Steelers got their let's say they do go with an offensive tackle in the first round, there's going to be a lot of them. And let's say there's still 3 available. It's like, oh, well, which one of those 3 would you have taken? I trust the Steelers to have dissected that better than myself.
Right.
Even if I've
get the guy that they know is going to be right for the Steelers.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's just kind of how we're going to do. Do you think we have time to take a few questions before we get our big question?
Just a handful.
Okay. We'll probably only about 5, but if we can get some questions here that we'll answer real quick, it would be nice if it was a topic at hand. Bottom line is I trust the Steelers with some of these things. Some of these where people weren't ready that we were going to put this in here. So if you see a question in there, lots of great discussion in the live chat tonight, as always, because you bring it. That's what you do. So here's a question. We'll bring it up. Thaddeus wants to know, will the Steelers cut Ebron?
I doubt it.
Why?
Because they don't have anyone to replace him or Vance McDonald at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if they cut Ebron, they have to do some work at tight end. So I would say right now, if I was going to guess, I would say no, simply because of what they have left. If they cut Ebron, it's going to be after they sign somebody else, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Given today's release of Kyle Rudolph and Kyle Van Noy, should the Steeler Nation finally make a run at the NFL Kyles and hashtag pay Kyle?
Oh, that's a good one. I love that one. Yes, both of those players were released today. We're actually doing a thing. Jeff is doing an article. I think it's going to be out first thing in the morning. I'm not sure. We're going to do a tracker. Like we do a tracker of stuff that's going on with Steelers players and things like that. Like Marquise Pouncey's retirement. He's officially placed on the reserve retired list. But there's we're going to be doing a tracker of free agents to get, players that get released that could actually, I don't know about like Van Noy's not released. They're trying to trade him, but if they have to, they'll release him. A lot of dead money with that one. I kind of like that one. I kind of wanted him at one point. So Tyler W says, what do you think the salary cap final number? I don't know. I mean, the TV deals might be coming through. Then they have to work out something special to, the salary cap's always been on the last year's finances, those profits. It looks like that's not what they're going to do this year. But if they do, they have to work out an agreement for it. You got another one?
Oh,
wait, I saw one and then it skipped. Hold on. Okay. There you go. You got it.
He says, do we trade for Wilson as the future at quarterback? No.
Nope. You can't afford it. You can't. I mean, when you're needing to build your team, you can't be trading away your capital. And I just don't. That's just not the way the Steelers do stuff.
Okay, I got the next one we got to do because you have to answer this next one.
Okay, I'll do it. We'll do this one and one more.
Will the Steelers keep Jeff's favorite player, Barry?
To training camp? Absolutely. I see Jordan Berry coming, them signing, offering him, minimum or about there and saying, come to training camp. Nobody else wanted him. Don't need to sign him for a lot more, but he was your punter. You brought him back last year. He's going to be at camp, but if they find somebody else that ends up being better, I don't know that he'll definitely win the job, but absolutely. I mean, you will see Jordan Berry in a Steelers uniform in August. Write that down. What do you think?
Yeah, good chance you will.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to bring up the last question before we get to our big question.
Because I'm going to go ahead and double check because people are saying you're wrong yet again.
What? About what?
Nothing. Just bring up the question.
Okay. Who's the running back in September? Connor, Snail, as he said, McFarland, Najee, or N.E.N.? I'm going to say
the answer is how many they got in there? 5?
They got 5.
The answer is F, none of the above.
I'm going to say out of all those,
if you maybe put money on it, that's what I'd bet right now.
Well, yeah, honestly, yeah, I would. If you're giving me that or the field, I'm taking the field. But out of the names there, then I'm going the safest pick to bet on, which would be Snell, because I'm not convinced that the Steelers are going to use a first round pick on either of those guys. Everyone that thinks that that's what they need to do. Yes, they need to fix the running game, but that comes as much with the offensive line, and I think they're going to. The Steelers might even answer this question in free agency at a lower end free agent. So we might be talking running backs now, and in 3 weeks it might be nope, don't need it. So, Rich, did you have a big question?
No, I was going to come back because people were calling you out saying,
with the Van Noy thing.
Oh yeah, and Van Noy announced that he's going to be released, but the Dolphins have not
be released.
But the Dolphins have not yet released him.
Because they're trying to trade him. There was a big report on that. I passed that on to Jeff Hartman to put on our thing. That was the report that I read, that they told him he was going to be released, but they haven't done it because they're trying to trade him.
Yes, I haven't. Yep. Get something in return. I've not seen anything other than that. That is the latest that I see. So,
okay.
All right.
Typing in the question.
Okay.
Okay, because I got it.
Type it in.
And it's basically the question of the show. You're going to give me, don't give me a big long explanation. We're going to bring it up. You got to give me, I'd like a one-word answer, but if you keep it under 5-word, that's fine. This is it, because I'm going to ask you, and then they're going to bring it in. Do you ultimately trust the Steelers? Do you ultimately trust the Steelers? Rich?
Me?
Yeah.
I've already answered that.
Yeah, of course we do. Okay.
Yes.
When it really comes down to it, we might think we know what's best. But do we settle in and realize that ultimately, do we trust the Steelers? We know what people are going to say, or what you should say, or, I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you what you have to say. George says yes. Okay. Steel Dog says, yes, I do. Sherry says yes. Woo. And then I'm skipping. Just Me says yes. I like this one. This should have been a better thing. Gyro says 90%.
Sure. Do the Steelers make some boneheaded moves here? Yes. Nobody hits Nobody bats 1,000 at this.
No one bats 1,000 at this. I mean, people are like, all the Steelers can't draft. I mean, you realize that like half the NFL players that get drafted don't play more than even a handful of games, a lot of them.
I know.
So Richard McKinney says yes. Mark Davison, he says yes. Okay.
You got to do it in the accent.
Right, is what he should say. Right. Thanks, Mean Joe. Absolutely. Okay. Tyler W. YES. Cree says yes. Kyle doesn't even have it as high. Okay. Kyle says 80+% of the time. Okay. Kathy, I like your answers. In Rooney's, I trust. Okay.
Yes.
Brad says, yeah, I always will. That's why they're my squad. I'm just kind of giving people this. This was more of a reminder. I know you guys trust them, but sometimes we forget that we just that we make these statements and things like that shows that makes it seem like our trust is wavering in the Steelers.
The next one is very telling. You got to
that one
thing. Yep.
Ezra says not a top 5 pick in my lifetime. Yes. Yeah. That means that the Steelers aren't really bad. Yep. The highest I've seen them draft in position, I mean, for forever was Ben Roethlisberger at 11. They got Bush at 10, but they had to trade up to get him. Okay. Say Steeler Chick 46 says yes in drafting wide receivers. Steelers Pittsburgh says yes. Okay. Andrew Wilbur says the Colbert skeptic says no. So
and you know what? That's his take, and I can understand.
Yeah. Okay. Felicia says she's on the fence.
Hey, Felicia.
Hey, Felicia. Okay. Gyro says, I guess. Matt B says, abso-freaking-lutely. Okay. Okay. Donald says yes. Trust Steelers. Okay. Portna says,
man, she's like, yeah. Portna's in rare form there tonight.
Yeah. To hang on to Ben too long. Yes. Okay. Chad says no if it means going to the postseason. Okay. So that you can have your take.
Reginald says, of course.
Okay. Tom says 80% most of the time. Like, what is it? 60% of the time. It works every time.
Yeah.
Had Thaddeus answered before? Because he says no. Tomlin's a jagoff.
Thaddeus, what is up with you today? I've seen more negativity from you in our live chat tonight than I think I've seen for a long while. Okay. Did you get some? Didn't eat dinner yet? Are you hangry?
Yeah. Mean Joe says most wins since the merger. Absolutely. I'd have to check that fact, but that wouldn't surprise me. Donald told me that was a terrible. I said one word. And guess what? We are still at the top of the power rankings. So when the Aussies say we do it right, you can suck it.
Donald, if you can't name where that came from, then you can't judge it. So right. I watched it. I saw it last night.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Actually, I wasn't even watching, but I caught that line coming up and had to make sure that was there.
Yeah.
Oh, here. It's been fun trying to pick through these.
Yeah.
Through the rest of the conversation. You got to get Jerry Cherry Band up there.
Okay. He says
HE
double hockey sticks.
Yes. HE double hockey sticks. Yes.
Yes. That's our Jerry Cherry Band. Make sure you're checking him out. Great music on the audio side of our podcast. So, bottom line is, it's a reminder, you don't have to agree with everything someone does in order to trust them, and I know that you're like, well, sometimes the trust is broken. I mean, I have an article coming out probably tomorrow. It's hitting it's like, what was the high point of the Steelers 2020 season? And I already know that there's going to be a bunch of negative people. How could you talk about a high point? Blah, blah, blah. Don't worry. The low point article is coming next. Okay. But at the same time, looking back at some of the parts of the season, I mean, on NFL Network tonight was the Colts game. I'm like, there was some good, exciting stuff that we got from our Pittsburgh Steelers this past year. But yet, I know the ultimate goal.
They were showing the Colts game.
Yeah.
It's funny because while I was at dinner tonight, they had, from this past year, Steelers Cowboys on.
Oh, well, they've sometimes been picking teams and doing it several games of theirs. Today must be the Steelers. So, and your own son got the movie wrong.
Yes, he did.
Yes,
Kyle, he did. And that was after I even posted up there.
Yeah, you put the answer in there.
Put the answer up there, and he still gets it wrong.
So make sure
that would be my son, who made the distinguished honor roll in the second quarter. You give him the answers, he gets it wrong. If he had it figured out on his own, maybe he'd get it right.
So make sure. Hey, check that out. We could live in our negativity and our sorrow for so long about the Steelers and the playoffs and everything else. But you know what? We've got another season coming up. We've got free agency coming up. Sometimes we need to get out of our own pity party and get back to work on seeing what makes this team and getting it to be the best that they can be next season, and see what you can do, because you never know when one little spark is going to create something, and you're going to get on a roll at the right time. Not 11 wins to start the season, but 11 wins to end the season, something like that. So if you just want to live in that and wallow in that misery of, they lost to the Browns and they were down 20, you can do that, but that's not going to help 2021 Steelers. So let's get out there. Let's get behind our team. Let's trust that the Steelers are going to do what they need to do. Rich, final thoughts.
Trust. There you go. There's one thing right now is I'm just totally, the trust is there. And the Steelers, they will have my trust until they do enough things that they lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that is anywhere in the near future could happen.
Exactly. You're exactly right. There's a lot of things. They would take a lot of things to break that trust because of how much they've established it over the years. And that's why they, as I'll say it one last time, are the greatest franchise in professional sports. So we'll keep being here next week. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more shape of this team. Maybe not. It might still take some time. We'll see how things are going. We got all the podcasts still coming at you. Might have a little something different Friday night with Tony's show. Tony will still be there, but we might have a little bit something different planned for you all. We can verify that. We'll probably give you more on that on Thursday, just to make sure that everything's good to go there. But make sure you're checking out all the podcasts, and make sure you're checking out Behind the Steel Curtain, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And once again, next Tuesday, 9 p.m., we'll be right back here talking about our love for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right, Rich?
Can't wait.